carried. Thank you. So now moving to our final open agenda item. Now, we've got some tea and coffee and biscuits that have been delivered here just by way of sustenance. I'm aware of the time. We will keep going. We've obviously got a bit of work ahead of us, but this is the last of the open agenda items. Help yourself to a cup of tea or coffee and a couple of biscuits as we go. I'm not going to stop the meeting. We'll just do that as we move ahead. Helen, thank you for this report. Welcome to the table. And again, I guess in the spirit of thanking people for huge amounts of work done, thank you for what on this subject has been, a massive amount of work. And today we're receiving a further update with obviously some certainties and some good news in this report as well. So I don't know whether there are any comments that you wanted to make by way of introduction.
I would note that with the cool, damp weather, which my team particularly loves, that we have regained momentum and things are moving very quickly. So since we had this paper signed off, we have moved more wells into the construction phase. So when we put pen to paper on this, we had 54 wells where we had works underway or scheduled, and today we have 70 wells where we have works underway or scheduled. So there's a lot of work happening across the city. The not so welcome news, of course, is that parts of the city are without chlorine today and serviced only by secure wells. There are some parts where we will need to continue that chlorine treatment. And so under the proposed program, you have some recommendations for a number of pump stations that have been named where we would like approval for that chlorine to continue. And I'm happy to answer questions. I'm sure people will have some questions.
Thank you. So moving to questions, Mike.
Thanks, Helen. Just got a couple of questions. I know last time we had the report there was a few pump stations that looked going to be quite late in the list of pump stations getting repaired. I know Mays was one of them. And looking at the map on the council website, it's still saying that Mays, Redwood and Grasmere are all supplying chlorinated water. Yet in the resolutions it doesn't mention them as continuing through May and June. So I'm just wondering, are they currently chlorine free, those three pump stations?
No, they do have chlorine, you're right, and we are using them at the moment, but we won't need them further down the track, and so we'll take them offline for works to be carried out.
So do we have a time frame around those ones?
Grasmere, we hope to have one well completed in May and the second well in June, and then that one will be back online. Mays, both of those will be completed in July. And what was your third one, sorry?
Grasmere, Redwood.
Redwood.
Well, I'm just wondering because they're not
Redwood, we're going to abandon both of those wells and replace them.
So obviously they're not mentioned in the resolutions as being continued with chlorination.
That's true, so they'll be serviced from other pump stations, those areas.
So the residents around that area, they normally would have got it from the Mays, they'll be getting it from a different...
That's correct.
Thank you. I know another question. Quite a while back now, you said there was no known public health benefits from chlorination of water. Now this has been going on for 12 months. Is there any known public health benefits from the chlorination of water over that period?
The public health benefit is about the reduction in risk.
Which was already very, very low.
Which is already very, very low. That is correct. But that is the public health benefit. It's about risk.
Yeah. And some of the known things that have happened in that time is obviously to the hot water cylinders and actually some adverse health effects to people that may have a reaction from the chlorinated water.
Yes, and for that reason we've continued with the program of reducing the chlorine dose across the city. So we started out with 48 pump stations at 1 part per million. Today there's only there's only 8 pump stations sitting at 1 part per million. We have around 25, 26 where we've halved the dose, and the remainder there's no chlorine. Okay. So there's much less chlorine in the network today.
Do we have, going down to the 9 pump stations, is there an estimate of the amount of people that will be affected from that?
No, there isn't, and it's very difficult to do that because the water will mix within the network, and the chlorine will be intermittent at a number of those pump stations. So it's almost impossible to give you a straight estimate of the number of people affected.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Raf?
Yeah, thank you, Helen. Good job. Page 11, 5.4, you discuss option 3, which is to discontinue chlorine treatment as at the end of May. Obviously, when we made the decision, it was for 12 months.
Yes.
So we're at a place now where we're nearly done to all intents and purposes. So if we were to take a decision, say, okay, no more chlorine, because actually we know we don't really need it, and we're pretty much done, and we said we'd do it for 12 months. We didn't want to do it, but we felt we were forced to. When you talk there about the disadvantage of that, obviously, well, it's inconsistent with the water safety plan, fine, goes against the advice of the drinking water assessor and the medical officer of health, and invites the Director General of Health to make a direction as to chlorine treatment. So are you really saying, look, you just can't consider this option because it's too much grief, quite frankly? Given we've come so far, an extra couple of months for a small percentage of the city, it's just not worth having that argument? Would that be
That is certainly the staff recommendation.
position?
Yes. So our water safety plan is a statutory requirement under the Health Act.
Yeah.
And is an approved document, and under that water safety plan what we've said is that we will have chlorination in place until we've secured the wells supplying a particular pump station. So that is what we're following.
Yeah.
So this, if council went for option 3, for example, we would have to amend our water safety plan.
Yeah.
And I think we would be unlikely to have that approved by the drinking water assessor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Vicky?
Thanks very much indeed for the report. Just in terms of the pump stations that still have the chlorine in them, if I just go through the resolution on page 6, if I were to just take out the ones that we've done, the last ones to get done are overhead stroking and sediment.
Yes.
Yeah, so if I just made a list and then just took out the ones that you've taken out from May, June and then through to September, that would be a correct list of where the chlorine is left from those resolutions that are here.
Yes.
Yep. Is there anywhere that people can now look online so that they can still see, is that map still operating?
Yes, that map's still operating and we update it twice a week
Right.
to keep it up to date.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
I should also note that the filling station at Burnside is operating as well this week. So
Well, again,
there's one at Keys pump station out at Rafiti, and there's one at Burnside now that's operated this week. Yeah,
and where's the one at Burnside?
it's in the park.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? So I'm happy to move this report. Pauline, you're happy to second? So what do you want? Put one separately? Yeah. All right, so moving into debate. Is there any debate on this? Sarah?
Same reasons as January last year.
It's not a sufficient response. Point of order.
I'm happy to speak for 3 minutes if you'd like on this one, but, you know. Yeah? Seriously? Okay. Yeah, I think that we're in a exactly the same position, except that the risk is even lower because there are fewer people involved. And last time round I voted against chlorination because we hadn't fulfilled our obligations under the Local Government Act to consult with the community, and because there would be unintended consequences, which turned out to be absolutely true. We voted initially without full information. It cost us a lot more than we had originally planned. There were health impacts due to the chlorination on people's skin. There were impacts on people's hot water cylinders. The number of plastic water bottles used has gone right up, and I don't think we need to continue.
Pauline?
Thank you. And we did have low risk right at the beginning, we knew that, but the consequence was high. And just because the risk is lower now, possibly, the consequence is still just as high. So we've come this far, as Helen says. We may as well keep going until the end. And if we don't comply with our water safety plan, that opens up the door for, being ordered to put the chlorine in anyway, which makes it harder to get it out. So I would not want to risk that and have a worse consequence than we have now. And I don't know about everyone else, but honestly, people have quietened down a lot about the chlorine. The taste is far, far reduced. Sometimes it's indiscernible. So that's because the dose is reducing, and people have become far more tolerant to it. I think the adverse effects are far less now. So we're at the tail end of it, and thanks, Helen, for the incredible work that you've done on this, the way you've structured this program, the way you've met your milestones wherever possible when it's in your control is incredibly admirable. So yeah, I'll be supporting this in its entirety today.
Yep. Mike.
I won't be voting for 2 or 3. I didn't vote for it the first time, and actually I think the risks have reduced from the amount of work that has been done. Obviously represent a community that has had the chlorination right from the beginning and still has it, and I hear the complaints. And maybe why council's not hearing as much is because people get sick of complaining to council when their complaints aren't actioned. What we know is actually there is only a few pump stations left. We could monitor them because the only time they're actually going to be contaminated or risk of contamination would be during storm events. And it's very easy to be in a position to actually dose them at that time. There has been no actual known public health benefits from the chlorination of water, yet we do know actually of all the side effects from having chlorination in our water. We have never ever actually done any proper consultation engagement with community about these, and now we've moved away from a citywide chlorination to more community chlorination, and yet we're still not having that conversation with people. I didn't vote for it in the first time, and I'm still not going to vote for it.
Dion.
Yeah, I was actually coming into this meeting. I was thinking about foreshadowing option 3 because I actually want to test it out and see where we're actually at, and do an actual risk analysis and actually understand what the risk and what the or where the risk is now, where we're at, because I don't know that data. And I voted originally to make the decision for 12 months, and that was the decision I made. I understand the risk is different, and I understand a lot more about the water reticulation system in Christchurch now. So I actually agree with Sarah and Mike. I would have foreshadowed option 3, but I'm not going to at this point in time. Yeah.
Thank you. Glenn, and then Phil. Glenn.
Thank you. Yes, what I said a few months ago was that, none of us actually really wanted to do this, but I think that the problem is you've got to play the long, smart, strategic game. So a few of us concluded that if you chlorinate temporarily, that is probably your best case for ensuring that you won't have to chlorinate permanently. I, for one, certainly wasn't going to snub my nose at the Director General of Health, was local equivalent, who would have imposed it anyway. As I said, no one wanted to do this, and my position is that we need to earn the right as a council to, in the long term, have our water chlorine free. It's not only just about chlorine, it's not only just about water, it's about local democracy. So we have to undertake best endeavours, as we've had throughout these reports, to do that. And as the Mayor has said previously, actually if we hadn't agreed to this, we wouldn't have undertaken all this work on our wells and pump stations. So I still support the unpopular decision we made to temporarily chlorinate.
Phil.
I'm certainly supporting all of the recommendations. I think it's easy to kind of like sound very brave and we don't have to do it. Well, we all know actually the government have got a three waters plan, coming ready or not. We have to do this work. I just think it would be negligent of this council to not really support this. There's no question that in fact by doing this work we are strengthening our city's infrastructure. It's a good investment for the long term. For goodness sake, have we not learnt anything from Havelock North? So I'm strongly supporting this and urge councillors to do so.
Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit disappointed because while I remember over several months ago, in that time we got from the staff, we will be finished probably at the end of March. Then after that, the extension to the end of May. Even the last month, I particularly asked the staff when will be finished. Staff mentioned, at the end of May, 90% will be finished. But today, this information look like 75% teacher will be finished. I've been, challenged by all the residents, particularly in the west side. So today, I review this information. I just don't know Suckerburn will impact the Hornby or not impact the Hornby. Suckerburn, I don't know. I promise our Hornby people, temporarily, I say I promise at the end of May, all done. So I don't know. Today looks like suddenly Suckerburn here. I don't know how many households will be affected. How do I to totally? But the consequence that's important. Even I'm disappointed, probably I still go ahead because I cannot go ahead. I just want to know if we set up those commitment on time schedule. One is enthusiastic. Is a kind of the where we is no any problem. The other one maybe a conservative, etc. Maybe I think probably a little bit conservative. That's better. Otherwise, I promise, based on staff information, I promise to talk to all the residents, constituents. Say at the end of May, all done. But today looks like I'm still disappointed about this situation.
Thank you. Raf.
Just very quickly, I mean, yes, I'm not happy that we're still chlorinating, but ultimately the risk here, it's not a health risk, we know that, it's a regulatory risk, and I think it's really, given we've only got a couple of more months for 90%, 3 or 4 months for 100%, it's not really worth picking a fight in that particular department, given what we've got coming. So I think we just have to grin and bear this a little bit longer, but we will end up with a much better water supply system. We've done all the upgrades in record time, and I think ultimately that's the good outcome from this whole process. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm just going to intervene in this debate because there's this suspension of standing orders resolution that we need to pass so that we can keep going beyond 5:30. Much as I'm disappointed and reluctant to do so, I need to move this resolution. Will somebody second it, Tim? All those in favour say aye. And now we'll resume the debate on the water supply improvement programme. Vicky.
I actually enjoy gambling, but only with my own money and not with the health and well-being of our future water and the most vulnerable in the community. So I would never take that chance. I'm okay with the fact that I don't like the fact, and I see Rickerton's that one of the last ones, but we have gone into this to make sure that our water is absolutely of a high enough standard to get the approval of the drinking water standards people and to have the medical officer of health clearly on our side when we go into the real battle with the government on the three waters, which is a way bigger battle than this one. I mean, if anything happened with the safety of water, the most vulnerable in our community, the youngest and the oldest, and the people who are most who are sick or vulnerable in any way are the ones who are most at risk. And I'd never gamble with that. That's way too risky. But we have serious challenges coming up in our water system with the government's recommendations on the three waters. We know that. We absolutely have to have the drinking water assessor, the medical officer of health, and we need to be able to show that we have done this incredibly well and be bulletproof on this. So for the sake of 2 months, I'm certainly not willing to gamble that.
We were all disappointed, I think it's fair to say, when we had to make that decision. And I say had to advisedly because we know that if we hadn't made the decision at the time that we did, we would have been directed to chlorinate the water by the medical officer of health anyway. So when we were put in a position where that was the responsible thing to do and realistically the only decision we could make, I think it's fair to say we were all disappointed to have to put chlorine into the Christchurch water supply. We were all disappointed to have to make that decision. It was a decision I think everybody around this table who did with a huge amount of reluctance. But responsibility and risk is what this has all been about. And Raf's absolutely right. It's a regulatory risk and it's a reputational risk with those who we need to keep both a good reputation and a good relationship with. There are decisions going to be made in government, or there's work going on in government at the moment that we need to be able to show that we've been responsible as we've dealt with this issue. There's a relationship with the drinking water assessor and the medical officer of health that we need to maintain as a city across this issue and possibly, in the case of the medical officer of health, other issues as well. And we need to maintain a good reputation with those people as well. We've come this far. We've got to keep going. To abandon ship at this stage and to wear the reputational or regulatory risk now for the sake of a couple of months that we weren't willing by majority to wear at the beginning of this process, in my view, would just be crazy. In terms of the timing, Jimmy, I absolutely share your disappointment. A number of us made commitments at the beginning of this process that, there was a time when we expected the chlorine would be out of the water supply, and that was on good advice and it was in good faith. But this has been a huge programme of work, a programme of work that normally would have taken place over a large number of years, which has been done over a relatively small number of months. And, really there's unprecedented planning and physical work has been done to get us to the point that we're at. And looking at the recommendation, the resolution in front of us, what we're saying is that 100% of the water from the secure wells by the end of July 19, with exceptional chlorine treatment available at 6 pump stations at high demand, we're essentially going to be chlorine-free by the end of July. Recent expectation was that that was likely to be September, October. We're still on track to say that we'll be 100% of the water from secure wells chlorine-free by the end of September. That is a huge achievement in anyone's language, given that this was something that was unplanned and the volume of work has been unprecedented. So on that basis, and on the basis that we're almost at the end of what has been a huge programme, and we've got significant regulatory and reputational risk if we were to divert from the track that we're on, I'm very happy to support all of these resolutions today. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour... I'll put... yes, item 1. All those in favour say aye. Aye. And the balance of the resolution, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? If I can call a division on that, please.
Councillor Tuna?
Yes.
Councillor Scandrich?
Yes.
Councillor Butt? Yes. Councillor Livingstone?
Yes.
Councillor East?
Yes.
Councillor Clearwater?
Yes.
Councillor Swerts?
Yes.
Councillor Templeton?
No.
Councillor Manji?
Yes.
Councillor Kewen?
No.
Councillor Galloway?
Yes.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
Councillor Davidson?
No.
Councillor Cotter?
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you.